opportunity to be here. I am grateful for the goodness of the Lord. Like the song said, it runs after us. And I am just so incredibly grateful that God never fails. He's always there. He said he will never leave us and forsake us. And I am just so thankful for the opportunity to be here. So many of you may or may not know this, but professionally, I do learning and development for a living. And so essentially, there are going to be times that I may ask you to put some things in chat. I may ask a question. That's just one of the things by professional training that I will do. But I am just so happy because when Minister Marsha originally came to me with this, I'm thinking to myself, well, what is it that I have that I could share that would be valuable for this group of women? And so I was reminded of the journey that I've been on. And really, it's a journey around confidence. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my journey. But before that, a good trainer always sets the stage and lays some foundational principles. So that way we're rooted in that as we continue to talk about the journey. So I'll tell you mine, but I also want you to think about your journey as well. Because as we know, there's power in sharing that. And all of us have things that are unique to us. And at its best, when we realize that potential, there's a gift that we give to those that are around us. And so it's important that we realize our full potential through God. So that way we can be at our best. Because guess what? If Minister Marsha and Minister Deborah sitting on that bench, if they weren't at their best in birthing forth CWA, we all talked about the impact that this ministry has had to us. Think of where we would be had they not done that. So as I start, essentially the next 20 minutes, I want to tell you about my journey. And so my hope is that you will get two big things out of this conversation. And the first is I would encourage you to examine your confidence level and either have a realization of what your unique abilities and strengths are, or if you don't have that, you can discover it, right? Or if you know what those strengths are, have an appreciation of your journey and what you still have left to accomplish in God's will. The second piece is being inspired to take action. So if you know that and you can stand on that, really, how can you further that for yourself, but then also how can you help others? So it's two things, is really understanding your confidence level, where you're at, and then what action do you want to take? So in terms of foundational principles, the first thing that I wanted to start off is with the definition of confidence. I went to ministry school, courtesy of Minister Marsha, 12 years ago. And so you always start with that definition, right? Tracy is nodding her head because she was in ministry school too. We were in the class together. So with confidence, the definition is a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of your abilities and qualities. So as you can see in that definition, it's a feeling of self-assurance from one's appreciation of their own abilities and qualities. We see that there's a perception attached to that, and value is linked. So what do I have? Is it valuable? And do I perceive it as such? And those things coming together is what creates confidence. All right. So we got to think about that in terms of our confidence. And as I just move forward in my notes, because a good trainer always has their notes. And so that's the definition. The second piece is, where does confidence come from? And I'm sitting here with women that know that, right? And confidence comes from God. The confidence that we want should come from God, and it's rooted in God. And so I'm going to offer you a scripture, and it's Psalms 8, 4 through 6. and I'm reading from the Amplified version. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of earthborn man that you care for him? Yet you have made him a little lower than a god, and you have crowned him with glory and honor. You made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet. So glory and honor, that's the thing that God has given us. And that's what our confidence should be rooted in. So we know what confidence is. We know where it comes from. What's the impact of having confidence versus not having confidence? What's the impact? So it's the difference of feeling that we're significant and living out our life at our best and realizing our full potential versus not doing that, not realizing our full potential. So confidence allows us to unlock that because it gives us courage to move forward. And the absence of that, we may be at risk of standing still. So it's important. And I can tell you, it's something that I've had to build over time. It's not something that some people are, born with it and they know it. Like if you look at my nephew, Lance, oh, he's got confidence in spades. You can't tell him nothing from his Halloween costume. He cooks food. He does all these things. Can't tell him nothing. I wasn't always like that. I was shy. I was reserved. I wasn't sure. A lot of things had happened, right? And so it was confidence for me had to grow over time. And it was through the journey of facing things. And even though I was fearful, choosing to move forward and accomplishing that which the Lord had me to do, did my confidence begin to grow. And it evolved through small moments over time. So a brief, example of this is how I got here today. So I can tell you, Minister Marcia, and this kind of goes back to when she talked about that push, right? So Minister Marcia, we were at lunch. We were having a strategy session. She had the vision for where she wanted CWA to go between now and the end of the year. And I'm like, okay, awesome. So I'll know in terms of Zoom what I'm supposed to be doing, how I can support that, if we're going to do breakouts and all of that. That's what I'm coming to that lunch prepared to think about. And then she says to me, almost had to check. I was almost out of there, guys. She says to me, she's like, you know what? I want you to bring the message. And I'm thinking about September or October. So I was like, okay, all right, cool. And so what I will tell you is I had this same conversation with her years prior, the first time that I was at CWA. And I think that was 5 or 6 years ago. And I remember that first time, like literally, I felt like I wanted to faint. And Angie, she was with me the day before, it was just a debacle, all sorts of things were happening. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, right? And so the day came, I had talked through Exodus and looked at the story of Moses. The music wouldn't come up. I had a PowerPoint deck that didn't come up. But guess what? In that moment, everything that should have happened happened. And all I had to do was to be willing and to know that God had me. So I remember feeling the greatest sense of pride and victory. And I was like, wow, Lord, even though I don't have the things, I don't have the ministry degree, I don't have the deep biblical teaching, Minister Marcia, she sees the potential, right? And all of those things don't matter because wherever you are on your journey, there is something that you have to share that is valuable and having confidence in that. So I remember the first time, and then we're kind of fast forwarding to, when we're having lunch and she's like, hey, I want you to do it again. My response was different. How I felt was different. So I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I think I can do this. I just need to stay in prayer. and know that the Lord has got me and he will give me what I need. And I should have the confidence to know that that will come. And whatever it is that he has, it will be seen as valuable. And that was a journey, guys. That was a journey. So I think that we all have similar stories of when Minister Marsha's made that phone call, or she said to you, hey, I want you to bring a message. And you may have looked at her like she had three heads. But I just love the fact that we all are willing and we come giving all that we have and knowing that that's good enough. So I don't have to be Minister Marsha and preach the pants off of people. I don't have to be that, right? I don't have to be Tracy, where it's like, oh my gosh, she can say that insightful thing that really gets you to thinking. And she's so transparent that it's just beautiful in terms of how she can tell a story and tell her journey through it. And it can transform what it is that you're thinking and speak right to your heart at that moment. All I needed to do was, I can't sing like my mom. Do not give me a microphone because you will forever want me to be on mute. Like literally you would disable my mute if I was singing. I don't have to be anybody else. All I need to be is myself, bring my best, and know that God will honor and grow that. I think so many times we often think about the things that we don't have, or we wish we had more of this, or we wish we had more of that. And so if we took that time of wishing and invested in our strengths and had confidence in the value that we bring, no matter what that is, and work it with God to bring it into its fullness, just imagine the lives that we can change. Our lives would be changed as a result of that. So again, we've questioned our value, we've doubted our contributions, wondered if we were, good enough. I've gone through that. And I remember that CWA played such a big role in me understanding my strengths, my skills and abilities, and growing that self-assuredness and understanding that through faith and knowing that God has got it, being rooted in that, you have everything that you need. And all you need to do is make a decision to move forward and to lean into those challenges and know that God has got you. So I want to go back to Moses, right? So we initially looked at that story. And if you all recall, Moses, he had the rod in his hand. He had this whole conversation with God. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I can't talk. I stutter. What if this happens and all of that? And like literally they're having this conversation, but Moses decides that he's going to go and he's going to do what the Lord instructed him to do. And he had this assuredness that the Lord was going to be with him. And so he through God performs all of these miracles. And I want to pick up the story in Exodus 14:10. And I'm reading from the Amplified again. And so at this point, Pharaoh had enough. He's like, you know what? I'm going to let the children of Israel go. This, I don't think I can take another plague. I just can't take it. I'm going to let the children of Israel go. So we're in Exodus 14:10. And so if you'll recall the story up until that point, the Lord, was saying, you know what, Moses, do this. I've got you here. Aaron's going to speak to you. He was really guiding him, right? Step by step. And so it seemed like he had it because they were, hey, we've accomplished it. He's let the children of Israel go. And you know what? We're going to get to the promised land. But as they were going on the journey from Egypt to the promised land, in Exodus 14:10, it says, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up and saw the Egyptians marching after them. So that had to have been pretty scary. It's like, wait a minute, hold on. We just got freed. We are on our way to this promised land. Oh my gosh, they are in pursuit of us. And they're like, wait a minute. They were very frightened. So the Israelites cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses in chapter 11, verse 11, I'm sorry. Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? So they start to question, are we really supposed to be doing this? What is this that you have done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Did we not say to you in Egypt, leave us alone? Let us serve the Egyptians, for it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians as slaves than to die in the wilderness. And then I like to think that verse 13 is the turning point for Moses. Because remember from where he was, it was like, hey, the Lord had to convince him hard. But look at verse 13. It says, then Moses said to the people, Moses said that, do not be afraid. Take your stand. Be firm and confident and undismayed, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For those Egyptians whom you seen today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, while you only need to keep silent and remain calm. So think about that journey. The Lord was telling him all the things that he needed. And at that point, Moses, like, you know what, I got this. It was that confidence that helped him to say, no, God's got it. All we have to do is know that and stand and wait for the next move. And so that was, okay, we still got to move forward. They still haven't encountered the Red Sea, y'all. And so they move forward, they encounter that Red Sea. And guess what the Lord did through Moses? He stretched forth thine hand, and that sea, it parted. So I say all of that to say that when they got to the other side, there was victory, they triumphed, they were happy, and they drew closer to the Lord. So I ask you, what are our Red Sea moments? Because confidence grows through challenges, right? What are the moments that are hard, that are tough? It looks like, man, on every side, it looks like things are not going the way that we think that they should go. And how are we reacting in those moments? Are we moving forward and knowing that we have the confidence in ourselves and in God to know that everything will work out the way that it should be? Or are we retreating? And even in that, God still loves us and teaches us and helps us to grow in those things. So I want you to consider your journey as it relates to confidence. And the headlines I would encourage you to think about is, do you know your strengths? And do you appreciate what those strengths are? So that way you're activating those and being at your best for others. And if you're there, that's fantastic. How do you help others discover what those things are? So that way they're able to fulfill their potential through God. So that way we all benefit from that. And the second piece, is there an opportunity for you to share your journey, your pivot moments with others that will encourage them to continue to move forward and to see that, hey, we're not all perfect. We're all, put together. We've all gone through some things, but guess what? It's by God's grace. It's by God's mercy that we're able to continue to move forward and to be inspired to take action, because when you do, there's power in that. So Minister Marsha said to me, she was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sending your picture, because I was afraid of what she was going to cook up. And because she's had some pictures where I told y'all I started off as rag tag. And so I was afraid. I'm not even, I was like, oh my gosh, let me get a picture over there, because literally un foo, right? And so she said, oh my gosh, the way that the boldness and the leaning in, I wasn't always like that. And I was just like, man, I just started to thank God for the journey. And thank you, God, for running after me, not leaving me there. Because I can say to you that I have joy, I have peace, and it's a daily thing, but I choose it, right? And it's all because of this ministry. The joy of my mother when she would come home and she would say, oh my gosh, you have got to go to CWA. And I'm like, I got to go to CWA. And she was so excited. And I would go there and these women just beaming with joy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that. I want that. So I remember when Pastor Marsha, I'm walking up in those overalls, she saw my potential. Who would know that 2 years later, I would be a young mother with a son? Young mother with a son. But my mom, the joy of being at CWA, Minister Marsha seeing me at church and like, you know what, you gotta come. Seeing the potential that I didn't believe was there and that I thought was lost because the fact that I made a choice, I had a child, there was value assigned to me by society. There was value that I assigned to myself. And I just thank God for, bringing me to CWA, because it's like, wait a minute, hold on. You got value that I've assigned in your mother's womb. And how do you see that and recognize that and hone that? Because that's the potential that you have at its best, not what these other folks have told you or what you believe about yourself. It's what I have said about you. And these women came around, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. So you had Sister Joan with the ruby in the little bag, right? You had Elder Hayes. I was like, Elder Hayes, oh my gosh, like I'm coming. I just, what do I need to do? She said, you need to experience the love of God. And once you experience, she called it a rhema word. I will never forget. She was like, it will transform your life. Minister Deborah, I tell you, that woman would tell you every single challenge that she was going through, but she had joy and she would pray with power and she would speak to that thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could just stand like that. I mean, she was so certain and she was joyous in spite of. I think of Pastor Rita when I was at my first retreat. She said, you're special. That's the first time I had heard that. She said, you're special. And she could have been selling me a bag of, I didn't care. I believed it. And it was something that added to my journey. Pastor Foot, Lord rest her soul. She gave me this teacup with this. She crowned those queens that day. And I will never forget it. I will never forget it. You think about it, that was me, Maddie, who keeps it real. You do not have to be perfect, but whatever you've got, you give it to the Lord, and He will continue to teach you and make you better. Sister Moore, her graciousness and her love, there's value in serving. Sister Catherine, laughter is good. I'm telling you, Sister Catherine can tell a joke like no other. But it's all of these women. Sister Cheryl, it's like, oh my gosh, being obedient and responsible. There's joy in that. And so I thank all of you. And I've got some new friends, Pastor Margie, that Southern twang and that wisdom that she just, oh my God, it just rolls off her tongue. Rev Bev, oh my goodness, I can tell you, she will, she will shoot it to you straight. And in a few moments, you got Pastor Nee. I can just go on and on about all the ways that you guys have impacted my life and have grown my confidence. So as I began to close, I can tell you that I didn't faint when Minister Marsha asked me to do this. I'm here. Praise God. Hopefully you found something valuable or just a nugget in one thing that I've said that will help you in your journey. Because I can tell you, all of you have something to share. You have shared it. I encourage you to continue to move forward with it, because it's young women that are watching that have the benefit of that. So I thank you for the Titus 2. I thank you for all of the pouring in all of that. And I just want you to know that you're a key place in my journey as I continue to try to make impact and move forward and hope that I can help another young woman see her potential, her value, so that way she will take action and move forward into God's best. Because I can tell you, once y'all put me onto that, and y'all like, you know what, let me really tell you about this group. So it goes back to that opening scripture, the Psalm 100. This is a group that you want to be part of. But guess what? It takes commitment. It takes a commitment to study, knowing the Lord, and just continuing to do God's work. So I just thank you for making me part of this ministry. I just thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. And I want you to have confidence that each and every one of you are valuable. And I just encourage you to take that gift and share it with others, because we need it so badly. So with that, thank you.